Hey guys, what is up? My name is Landon and welcome to the Jersey Zone. So today I'm going to be doing the last division, the Atlantic Division predictions for this upcoming season. And since this is the last division in my prediction videos, I will talk about who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup. I'm not going to do a playoff prediction video or anything like that. So I'll talk about who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup at the end of this video here. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Now, if you guys haven't seen any of the other divisions and you want to check them out, I'll leave a link to them in the description down below. And like I said in those videos, these predictions are just for fun. I expect to be very wrong with a lot of these predictions, so if you disagree with me, that's completely fine. Not a big deal. Anyways, let's get into the predictions. So starting us off at 8th place in the division, it's obviously going to be the Buffalo Sabres. I'm wearing the Turd Burger because it's an ugly jersey, and right now, the Buffalo Sabres kind of look like an ugly team. They look like a little bit of a mess, and I feel so bad for Buffalo Sabres fans, man. It's just so unfortunate for them. Their team has been bad for so long, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better at all. I really do feel bad for Buffalo Sabres fans. Like, just looking at the roster, like, who's going to score? They traded out Reinhardt. They also lost Allmark as well. Like, they've lost their kind of good players. Eichel's not going to play this year either, and who knows what's going to happen with that situation. Right now, it doesn't really look like he's going to get traded. Hopefully he does this season, but, you know, who knows at this point? The whole thing is just a huge mess, and that's not even really going into their roster either. Like, you look at their goaltending is not good. It's not very good at all. Right now, they have Craig Anderson, and as I'm recording this as well, they just sent down Aaron Dell. I was really hoping Dell would play with the Buffalo Sabres this year. I really like Dell a lot, actually, and I think he can be a decent backup, but apparently he didn't play that well in the preseason. So with sending him down, their backup is going to be Tokarski, it looks like. So it's going to be a tandem of Craig Anderson and Dustin Tokarski, which is not a very good tandem, I'm going to be honest with you. I will say, though, I don't know a ton about Tokarski. It looks like he hasn't really played a ton in the NHL. He's moved around a little bit. He is 32 as well, so he's got some experience, but I really haven't seen him play, so I really don't know a ton about him. But with Craig Anderson, I like Anderson. He was really good in Ottawa, but he's just not a #1 goaltender anymore. He's too old, so it's going to be a rough season for the Buffalo Sabres. Their goaltending, I don't think, is going to be very good. Now, that being said, I don't think they're really going to care, or at least Buffalo management isn't going to care. They're going for that #1 pick. But yeah, I just think it's going to be another tough season for the Buffalo Sabres, and I just feel so bad for their fans. At 7th place in the division, I have the Detroit Red Wings. Now, I will say, I do like what Detroit is doing. I actually like what they did in the offseason, which they didn't really do much. Basically, the big move is in goal, where Bernier left, and then they brought in Nedeljkovic. So Nedeljkovic is going to be that new, like, 1A, 1B with Greiss, I would say. Maybe he'll be the starter. Not really too sure. We'll see kind of how that works out, but either way, I think that goaltending tandem is going to be really good, and I just like what they've done with their young players. They've kind of brought them up slowly. They haven't rushed them into games or anything like that, so I still don't think they're going to be a great team this year. I do think they will improve a little bit on last year, but I definitely can see this team being pretty good in a couple of years now. Now moving on to number 6, this might be my most controversial pick for this video. No, probably not. I have one later on that's probably a little bit more controversial, but at number 6, I do have the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I will say this. I am a Leafs fan. Yes, I am. And I am also still salty about last season and losing in the playoffs. But I am not salty at the Montreal Canadiens. I'm salty at my own team. They suck, and I hate them. So I'm not putting Montreal at 6th place because of my bias, or at least it doesn't feel like that to me. Maybe it is like just like subconscious bias that is why I'm putting them in 6th place, but I really just am not a huge fan of their team, and I think they have downgraded a lot in the offseason as well. The huge loss is Danault. That is a massive loss for them. I know they did also bring in Dvorak to kind of help that out a little bit, but I still really think that is a big loss for the Montreal Canadiens. He took a ton of defensive faceoffs that really helped them out, and we'll see if they can kind of work on that and improve on that, especially Suzuki as well with those defensive zone faceoffs. That is something that he definitely needs to improve if he will be like a top center in the league. Obviously, they also lost Kotkaniemi in that offer sheet. Now, I know some Montreal fans aren't a huge fan of him, but I do think he is still young enough that he might be able to reach his potential. And then they also lost Corey Perry as well, which I don't think is going to be a huge regular season loss. If they do end up making the postseason and making the playoffs, then I think it will be kind of a big loss for them, because Corey Perry is pretty good in the playoffs. He really knows where that line is, where you don't actually take a penalty, but you still punish the team pretty heavily. So if they do end up making the playoffs, like I said, I think it will be a pretty big loss for them. And then their biggest loss is a player they didn't actually lose, but it is going to be that Shea Weber injury. It looks like he's not going to play for the entire season. That is a massive hole on the blue line for the Montreal Canadiens. And then they also have a ton of other injuries going into the season here. I know Edmondson just got injured. I'm not sure how long he'll be out. I don't think they've said quite yet. I know know Hoffman is also injured. I believe he'll be out for the first month, if I'm remembering that correctly. And then Carey Price is also looking like he's not going to start the season as well. So we'll see how long he is out as well. It's a ton of injuries for the Montreal Canadiens. And also, like I said, not only just the injuries is making me put them in 6th place, I really don't think they're that good of a regular season team. I mean, if you look at the past couple of seasons, they really shouldn't have made the playoffs, and the only reason that they did was because of the way that the playoffs were formatted because of the pandemic. In 2020, they were like 24th or 23rd in the league, something like that. The only reason they made the playoffs was because of the play-in. Now, they played really well in that play-in, obviously beating the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then they had a really good first round against the Philadelphia Flyers as well. And then last year, I feel like they also didn't have a very good regular season, but Calgary and Vancouver just had awful seasons as well. And then Ottawa had that really bad first half. That second half for Ottawa was pretty good, and it kind of looked like they might have been able to catch Montreal if it was an 82 game season, but obviously it wasn't, so that doesn't really matter. But that being said, I don't think the regular season was that good, but once again, in the playoffs, they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I will say they're a very good playoff team. If they make the playoffs, I'll probably pick them to go at least to the second round, but I just don't think they're that good of a regular season team. At 5th place in the division, I have the Ottawa Senators. Once again, might be a little bit of a controversial take here, but I just think they're a pretty good team. They're a very, very hardworking team. If you look at last season, like I was saying when I was talking about Montreal, their first half was really, really bad, and that had a lot to do with their goaltending as well. Their goaltending was really bad in those first couple of games there, and that really put them behind on the season. But after kind of that picked up, and after their goaltending started to get a little bit better, they were pretty good. I mean, they're a hardworking team, like I said. They really don't quit on you. They surprise you a lot as well. I mean, you look at guys like Connor Brown and Nick Paul, and they are fantastic on the penalty kill. And they still have some pretty young guys like Stützle who can really shoot the puck, and that player is going to be really good for the Ottawa Senators there. Now, I will say, as I'm recording this, Brady Tkachuk still hasn't signed yet. Now, I really thought he was going to sign before the start of the season, and that's kind of why I have them in 5th place. If he doesn't sign before the start of the season, and it kind of goes into like almost December until he signs, I really don't think Ottawa will get into 5th place in this division here. But like I said, this is kind of counting on Brady Tkachuk actually signing, so at least for Ottawa's sake. And I also believe that Matt Murray will have that bounce back season as well. I know he really didn't have a good time last season, so just with the fact that I think Murray's going to have a bounce back year, I think Brady Tkachuk is going to sign as well. And just looking at their young players and really looking at their roster, I think they will be a pretty decent team. And like I said, they're just extremely hardworking, and they just feel like they never quit. At least that's what I see when I watch their games for sure. So that's why I have them in 5th place. At number 4 in the division, I have the Boston Bruins. I feel like the Boston Bruins took a little bit of a hit with their losses. They lost David Krejci, which I think is going to be a huge loss for them. Obviously, he's usually their second line center, and sometimes he also plays on that first line there when Bergeron gets injured. But without him being there, who's that second line center? Is it going to be like Charlie Coyle? I'm really not sure about him being a second line center, and especially if Bergeron does get injured again, then him going to the first line, that's really iffy. I really just don't like their center depth, in my opinion. They did also lose Halak and technically Rask, although Rask still hasn't decided if he wants to re-sign yet or not. Although even if he doesn't re-sign, I don't think their goaltending is going to be that bad. They brought in Ullmark, and they do also have Swayman as well, who Swayman played pretty well last year, so if he kind of keeps it up, then I think they're going to be pretty fine, because I think Ullmark is a pretty good goaltender. Even if Rask doesn't come back, I don't think it's going to be a huge loss for the Bruins. That being said, though, if Rask does decide to re-sign, that is a very, very good goaltending tandem, a very scary goaltending tandem with Ullmark and Rask. I really would not want to face that, so I don't know. We'll see how that kind of plays out there. They did also sign Foligno and Haula, so I think those are pretty decent additions, but yeah, I don't know. I just see Boston as coming at 4th in this division. Not like I think they're going to be bad, just I think the other teams are just going to be a little bit better than they are. Coming in at number 3, we have the Florida Panthers, and I'm really happy that the Panthers are finally a good team, or at least it looks like they're going to be a good team. I mean, they did also bring in Reinhart, which I think is a really good addition for them. They did also bring in Thornton, which I think is a little bit of a strange addition for them, just because I think their forward depth is really, really good. So as long as they kind of play him sparingly, I think that's a fine addition. You know, not play him every single night, probably just play him on the 4th line. I think it'll work out fine if they go that route, but if they play him every single night, I'll be a little bit confused. Now, that being said, they did also lose Drieger and Wenberg, and I think Drieger could be a really big loss for the Florida Panthers, kind of depending on how their goaltending plays this season. And I'm really going to be focusing in on Bobrovsky this season and how he plays, if he's finally going to have that bounce back year, if he's finally going to play well and play up to that $10 million contract, because he really hasn't since he signed it. And if Bobrovsky falters, then they're going to have to go to Spencer Knight, which he's played fantastic in the games that I've watched so far. He was really good in the playoffs, I would say, last year as well. So it looks like he can handle some pressure, but like I said, if Bobrovsky falters and you have to go to Spencer Knight, we'll see how he handles that kind of pressure. It is a little bit different than the playoffs, but I assume if he can handle the playoffs, he's probably going to handle the regular season. But like I said, you just never really know with those young goaltenders, so we'll have to see about that. That's probably my main concern for the Florida Panthers, is that goaltending. Everything else, they're pretty good at. That forward depth is really nice, as well as the defense. I think their defense is really, really strong. It's just the goaltending is the only part of the Florida Panthers that I could really see be a little bit of a weakness for them. Although, that being said, I still think it's pretty good. At number 2, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning, and yes, I know, we'll get to who's at number 1 in just a little bit here. Going back to Tampa, though, they did lose a decent amount. They basically lost their entire third line. Losing Gaudreau, Coleman, and Yanni Gourde, I think, does hurt them a decent amount. That was a really good line for them, especially in the playoffs for the past couple of seasons. But that being said, they did kind of replace them a little bit with Corey Perry and Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. I think those are pretty decent third line additions for them. They did also lose Luke Schenn, but then they brought back Zach Bogosian, who I like Zach Bogosian as well. He played well in Tampa, so even though they did lose that third line, I think they recovered pretty well. And I mean, it's Tampa. They're good like literally everywhere. Their forwards are really good. They have pretty good depth as well. They have a fantastic defense, and their goaltending is Vasilevsky. It's literally just Vasilevsky. It doesn't matter who the backup is. It's just Vasilevsky. He's that good. He's going to play most of your games. He's going to play every single playoff game. Doesn't matter who your backup is. Your goaltending is Vasilevsky. But yeah, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning. I wouldn't be surprised if they win another Stanley Cup and get that three-peat, because they're just that good. So at number 1, yes, I do have the Toronto Maple Leafs coming in at first place in the division. Now, I will say, this is just the regular season. I don't have them doing anything in the playoffs because it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're probably not going to do anything in the playoffs, and I don't think they're going to do anything in the playoffs until they actually do something. And with the way that I have these standings set up, they're going to be playing the Boston Bruins, so they'll probably lose to the Boston Bruins. I would not be surprised. Now, once again, I don't think this is my subconscious bias putting them at number 1 because they are my favorite team. I think they are an actually good team for the regular season, at least. The playoffs, it's a completely different beast, completely different story. It's basically the opposite of the Montreal Canadiens, where I don't think they're a good regular season team, but they do well in the playoffs. With Toronto, they're a good regular season team, in my opinion. They don't do well in the playoffs. They suck in the playoffs. But yeah, let's actually look at the team here. I'm only going to talk about them a little bit. I am going to do a full kind of season preview for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It'll probably be uploaded tomorrow, hopefully, or maybe the next day. I'm going to be uploading it soon because, the regular season starts pretty soon here, and I just want it up before that regular season starts. But the Leafs did lose a couple of big pieces. They lost Joe Thornton, who I don't think is a huge piece loss, but that kind of locker room energy guy does probably hurt a little bit. They also lost Zach Bogosian, who, once again, don't think is a massive loss. Their 2 big losses is one, Freddie Anderson, who I don't even know how big of a loss that will actually be for the Maple Leafs. He really was not playing well in the past couple of seasons for them. He was injured a lot as well, so we'll kind of see how much that really affects the Leafs. They did also replace him with Mrazek, who I think probably complements Jack Campbell a little bit more because of the fact that Mrazek and Campbell are going to be that 1A, 1B type of situation. With Freddie Anderson, I never really got that energy that he wanted to be a 1A, 1B with Jack Campbell. At least that's kind of how I felt. So I think it just works a little bit better for the Maple Leafs. But the other big loss, and this is the biggest loss in the offseason for the Toronto Maple Leafs, is obviously Zach Hyman. I am so sad Zach Hyman left. I really, really am. I really don't even know if it's fully sunken in yet that Zach Hyman won't be a Maple Leaf next season, so it does really suck. It's a big hole for the Toronto Maple Leafs to fill. They have brought in a couple of guys to try and fill that role, like Nick Ritchie and Michael Bunting as well. Obviously, they're not the caliber that I think Zach Hyman is, but I think they're trying to go for a little bit of a combined effort than just one-for-one replacing Zach Hyman. They did also bring in Kampf and Kasha, who I think are going to be good additions for them. Overall, I do like the kind of lineup for the Maple Leafs. Their goaltending, I think, is going to be really solid. Like I said, with Mrazek and Campbell. Their defense was really good last year, actually. It was one of the better defenses in the league, and they barely changed it. It's just Bogosian leaving, and that's the only thing that really has changed, so that's good as well. And then that forward group is still really good. I mean, you have Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander. That's a pretty good forward group, and I know playoff-wise, it's a different story, but in the regular season, especially Matthews and Marner, they're almost unstoppable. So like I said, it's a different story in the playoffs, but I just think they are a very good regular season team. But with all my division predictions out of the way, let's talk about who I think is going to win the 2021-2022 Stanley Cup. So looking at all these teams here, I got no idea, man. I really don't. I can totally see Tampa going for that three-peat there and actually getting it. I can kind of see Colorado winning it as well, although they've had struggles in the second round. But I'm not picking them to win the Stanley Cup for this season. For me, my Stanley Cup winner is going to be the New York Islanders. I just look at Barry Trotz coaching that team and go, they're just so strong defensively. They got such a good system. They really like shutting down teams, especially in that playoffs. Now, the past 2 seasons, they've had issues taking out the Tampa Bay Lightning, but maybe third time's the charm here. Maybe they knock them out because they'll probably face them again. Most likely. I guess we'll see. But if the Tampa Bay Lightning don't make it through the Atlantic, then I definitely see the New York Islanders winning the Stanley Cup. And like I said, in my opinion, it's really just them going through Tampa Bay. That is going to be the struggle for them. Once they get through that, I'm going to see them winning the Stanley Cup. But that is my prediction on who's going to win the Stanley Cup and the Atlantic Division as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to follow me on my Instagram and my Twitter at the Jersey Zone YT on Instagram and at the Jersey Zone on Twitter. Links are in the description down below. Like I said, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.